If COVID-19 became a pandemic in 1990 rather than 2020, how would events have played out differently? Kids would have long work pockets instead of online class. As a software engineer, rather than remoting in, I could just dial in and download the 200k of source code and work on it at home. Security wasn't a real issue then. DOS text-based software. And instead of trying to work on the source with maybe 1,000 other people, your whole software team that might modify your module might be fewer than 5 people, unless you worked for Microsoft. Every box of cereal would have a limited edition collectible mystery mask in it that you have to submerge in water for an hour to activate the filter or some shit. Hypercolor masks. A girl in my class in 5th grade farted in her hypercolor shorts while at the board doing a math problem. I think about that like once a week. I would be 9 years old playing in my backyard or up in my room with stuffed animals and be super excited that I didn't have to go to church. Same except Nintendo and 11 years old for me. I think there would be a D-A-R-E like cartoon mascot to promote covered safety protocols. Mask it or casket. Sitting here looking at my Mark Martin with a North Carolina State Trooper poster with the giant click it or ticket on it. Your comment is too perfect. X-Men cartoon telling you to wear a mask during cartoon time, including Wolverine even though he'd be immune. Plot twist, Xavier and Magneto die of COVID and everyone becomes normal students and working adults. There would be no COVID-19, just COVID-89. God, the 90s kids would have another thing to brag about, only them remembering. I don't know, but George Carlin would have been hilarious. You know what's wrong with the dick in world? Republicans telling you a virus is a hoax and then being first in line to get the vaccine faster than ducking Michael Johnson. Thoughts and prayers for you, but they want the real medicine. Honestly, this might be the most Carlin posthumous quote I've ever heard. That is 100% on brand with his punk line setup. My mom would have called around till she found someone who tested positive, then sent us over to play so we'd build immunity. This is how I got chicken pox as a kid. At the time, I was happy I got to hang out with my friend. Little did I know my parents were committing biological warfare. No lockdowns. The speed we got the vaccine is straight up science fiction compared to what was possible in the 90s. Sequencing the genome alone would take ages. Even after less than a year, everyone is about at the end of their rope. In the 90s it would have to have been stretched multiple years, so they would just not do it and hoped for the best. And no Zoom or working from home. I'd go one farther and say the phone system would have failed, since it was designed to only handle the percent of the subscribers using it at any given time. No remote learning, no remote working, and a vaccine that would have taken much longer to create. Probably would have resulted in many more deaths even with social media not spreading misinformation. People still had conspiracy theories, they just spread slower back then. Might have forced wealthy countries into basic income, while poorer countries would have suffered even more. Vaccine would have taken years. It was questionable whether we could make one so quickly today. Fortunately we could. Close bracket. MacGyver would have saved us all. Considering that people wouldn't have social media to air their opinions on, nor the modern day streaming services, nor Amazon, think we'd be doing a way worse job of social distancing, or whatever. The biggest difference, however, would be that most of the people who had no problem doing their job from home on a laptop in 2020 would actually still have to show up at their workplace in 1990. Same is true for students, and remote learning wouldn't have worked. The biggest difference, however, would be that most of the people who had no problem doing their job from home on a laptop in 2020 would actually still have to show up at their workplace in 1990. Same is true for students and remote learning. This is so true. There was simply no demand for any of the technologies associated with working from home. Video transmission was all analog, and digitized video compression was ducking pathetic compared to what it is today. H264 and H265 codecs are the result of thousands of collective patents, and probably hundreds of millions in research. Much of it designed to make streaming video more efficient and more flexible on crappier internet networks. We also didn't have disk speeds, processors, anything really. The best we would have had was some novel netware adaptive shit. My friend attended remote college classes in the 90s. They mailed him VHS tapes and he watched them, and then mailed them back. Lol. He still had to show up to take his exams though. My remote class in the 90s was over the radio. We tuned into the college's AM station and listened to the lecture that way. Exams were on Saturdays. Nobody would know who Joe Exotic is. I wonder how much it would spread in the first place. It feels like there was a big jump in mobility in the last 30 years. So it's possible that it would not have spread as far in the first place. However, let's assume it did get your neighborhood. On the downside, the internet was really in widespread use. So no work or school from home. So you would have to interact with others. However, on the upside, no internet means no social media spreading false information. There were only a small amount of news outlets, and while they aren't perfect, I think they would have given better information than what some people are getting now. There would have been very little cries that it's all a hoax on network TV back then. So the general public might take it more seriously. I think Bush Sr. would also have taken it seriously. So having the president on television telling you that there is a problem does a lot to convince people that there's a problem. I think it would have spread just as far in 1990. It's just that the news about it wouldn't have spread as fast, and doctors from different areas wouldn't have been able to communicate with each other as much either. So there would have been a lot of really bad, deadly cases of pneumonia until someone put 2 and 2 together. Getting a vaccine safely to the finish line in just a year would have been impossible. 1990 would have been ducked with hoping COVID burned itself out, because they would have been years away from getting anything workable together. Think AIDS. Think how accurate the science was on AIDS initially. Think how people call some of that information ridiculous now, and are amazed that people could have thought that way. We even have a common factor in the 2 diseases in 4C. Think about how that affected sex ed and supported the push for abstinence-only education. The grunge scene probably would have never happened. Smells like hand sanitizer. Princess Diana would go on about the importance of wearing a mask, and then more people would wear masks too. She helped destigmatize HIV/AIDS. Before her, there was a huge stigma that it could be spread through human contact. Close bracket. Dan Quayle would spell it wrong. COVID. Corduroy masks. Good question. Terrible responses. People would just continue to live their lives normally. This is the 90s for crying out loud. This is the most likely answer. People would talk about how the flu is really bad this year and that would be about it. Mike Huckabee would suggest we isolate the carriers of this plague as he did with AIDS. Don't only single out Huckabee, but other politicians as well in the public. Look how they treated the kid Ryan White who got it through a blood transfusion and was treated like the scourge of the earth. There were protests and near riots over him wanting to attend school, and of course the media was right there to keep the fear going. Well, there won't be armchair doctors on Facebook spreading misinformation and conspiracies about COVID not being real. So maybe people would actually socially distance and wear masks without claiming their liberties are being infringed upon. Toilet paper rolls across America. Being stuck at home would be a lot more boring. No video streaming. Also, no telework because the internet just wouldn't be able to handle the capacity. Even if people could set up computers at home. Windows 3.1 would not have been released yet in 1990. So you had Apple computers and that was about it. And it was 24K modems. Not even 56K yet. So everything would be slow. Maybe if all you did was paperwork a fax machine could work. But not well. In short, more people would be infected because more people would need to gather together for work. And more people would get bored and go to video stores and libraries. And schools wouldn't be able to close unless the entire area closed because young kids can't study alone at home. It would be a huge thing and a pain in the ass and a lot worse, especially considering less advanced medical technology. I don't think getting a vaccine out for a coronavirus within a year would have even been possible in 1990. Read my lips. Wear a mask. WrestleMania 7 in Los Angeles would have been cancelled. Instead, WrestleMania 37 in Los Angeles has been cancelled. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed watching this video, leave your thoughts in the comments below.